The Miami Dolphins are heading to Philadelphia for a massive Sunday night football clash with the Philadelphia Eagles, and we are looking at our keys to victory here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krause, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I want to tip our cap to the everydayers who are locked in with us on a daily basis because it is your team every day. We don't just say we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. We have spent the last 2 days checking the tape of the Philadelphia Eagles and kind of exploring what the task is at hand for the Miami Dolphins. And I have my handy-dandy notebook with a lot of bullet points for things that need to be done, the to-do list. If Miami is going to get out of the city of brotherly love with a victory on Sunday Night Football to move their record on this season to 6-1. It's a tall task, to be very honest. And we'll do a prediction at the end of the show as far as what we think is actually going to happen for the actual outcome. We did not do that on Crossover Thursday yesterday. I'm going to start on the defensive side of the ball because I think the Philadelphia Eagles offense presents the level of challenges that I'm more anxious about is probably the best way to put it. The Eagles have a lot of good stuff going for them. Jalen Hurts is a super physically gifted quarterback. A.J. Brown is an absolute rock star at the catch point. Devontae Smith is not somebody you can have a lot of success if you choose to press him. The Eagles may not have the most fluid scheme right now. It feels like they're still finding their way after losing their offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, but they are one of the most liberally aggressive teams in football. And you don't have to go any further than the first possession of the game against the New York Jets. Eagles scored a touchdown on the drive, but they get down to the 3-yard line. They had a 4th and 3 and chose to run QB draw with Jalen Hurts. And this was when Lane Johnson was still in the game. They ended up getting tackled short of the yard of the goal line, but Jalen Hurts fumbled the ball into the end zone and it was recovered for a touchdown. So I think that's kind of when you give yourself extra downs, the way that Philly does with consistency. There's all the talk about the tush push, which the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. I really don't care. It's a rugby style QB sneak and it's highly effective and it works, and credit to them. So you need to know going in you need to be prepared to play 4 downs on defense. Because if it's on the plus side of the field and it's less than 5 yards, they're probably going to go for it. And they've had success on 4th down this season. Miami really is one of the other very liberally aggressive 4th down teams. They have not had success thus far this season. They had a lot of success last year on 4th down. They haven't had those successes this year on 4th down just yet. But as far as the defensive notes that I have for Jalen Hurts, stopping and defending Jalen Hurts, one of the primary objectives that I would have if I was the Dolphins defense this week is I would be trying to force him to roll left. He had a rep early against the Jets where he's flushed outside the pocket and he's stiff arming a defender with his left arm and is rolling to his right. And this defender not only is grabbing his arm while they are on a dead sprint towards the sideline, rolling to Hurts' right, he's actually got his hand up in the collar of Hurts' pads and he's trying to pull him to the ground. And Hurts, with a body hanging off of him while he's stiff arming him, throws a perfectly placed ball just beyond the sticks to A.J. Brown for a conversion for a fresh set of downs. And it was really the embodiment of Hurts. He can do a lot of damage with his legs, right? He can do a lot of damage as a runner. He's +1 in the run game, creates the math problem. But ultimately, Jalen Hurts, as a thrower, is just as dangerous with his legs too. So trying to mitigate that by forcing him to go away from his throwing side, I think is something the Dolphins should aspire to do. Now, what is interesting is Lane Johnson has suffered the ankle sprain, and it sounds like he's going to play. He practiced at a limited basis on Thursday, and he's one of the toughest dudes in the NFL, period. He's probably going to play. I would try some things to test him. I would try Bradley Chubb on that side to test him with power. I would try Andrew Van Ginkel / Jalen Phillips on that side. And I would be probing for blood in the water with Lane Johnson's going to play through an injury, but is he 100%? Because Jack Driscoll really was one of the contributing factors to the Jets getting the turnovers that they needed and enough negative plays against the Eagles offensively to get them off schedule and help the Jets win the football game last week. So I'm looking at Lane Johnson and I'm saying, okay, maybe this is a matter of I take Bradley Chubb, who usually rushes to the left tackle. Can I try him on the right-hand side this week? Is he comfortable enough doing that? If he is, can I create push and collapse the pocket with Lane Johnson playing through an ankle injury where he might not be 100%? Because if you can create the push that way, then you might be more prone to get Hurts to go the other way when he leaves the pocket. And there were times where Jalen Hurts felt penetration and he was overly eager to get outside the pocket and extend plays. When the Eagles' offense is in structure, there's two things that I took note of in the passing game. There were a lot of plays that were designed touches to specific targets, and that's not a bad thing. It's not meant to be derogatory towards the structure or the infrastructure of the offense. They put Devontae Smith in the backfield to try to match him up against the linebacker on a choice route. You see him in the backfield, he's probably back there for a reason. The Eagles came out in 12 personnel and motioned the other tight end out to the same side as Dallas Goedert, and they ran a tight end screen to Dallas Goedert to try to get another big body out in front of him to set up the screen pass. You know, they look to go out of their way to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. So you have to be cognizant of that. And we talked about it throughout the course of the last 2 days. The offense really runs through four guys. It's DeAndre Swift, it's Dallas Goedert, it's Devontae Smith, and it's A.J. Brown. But those players all on the field simultaneously, they're good enough that Dolphins fans, I want you to calibrate your expectations. The Eagles are going to move the football. A lot of some of the defense the last few weeks around Vic Fangio's defensive scheme has been, well, it's bend, don't break. This is a bend, don't break matchup. This is the matchup where you are aspiring to force them to kick field goals in the red zone more than once. Because if they have 8 possessions, hypothetically, and they score on 5 of them, can you force 2 field goals in the red zone? Because if you do, that's 27 points. It's under 30. I think it is going to be that kind of game. I think it is going to be a lot of points. I don't think either team, unless there's an overwhelming wash of early turnovers that gets the game off script one way or the other, it's probably going to feel early like the Buffalo game did. And Dolphins fans might not like hearing that because of how the Buffalo game ended and how that script snowballed on the Dolphins as the game went on. I'll have offensive notes next. Other notes that I have here on the Philadelphia Eagles offense, the last thing that I have actually is this is a very vertical-oriented offense, at least in the game tape that I watched. But what I thought was interesting is Jalen Hurts, on a number of occasions, he would get to the top of his drop, and if you drop with depth in coverage, he would, on schedule, at the top of his drop, immediately take the check down and take the profit. I look at that in this matchup, I think that's probably a win. So I would be playing some coverage, and the Vikings had success mixing and intermixing pressure looks and pressure packages with drop 8 against Jalen Hurts. And when he had to diagnose against drop 8, he really struggled. So I would look at times to throw a lot of bodies in coverage and take the depth and force him, whether that's 4 over 4 under quarters or whether that is 3 over 5 under, drop 8, cover 3. I would be looking at times to try to flood the throwing windows and force Hurts to take the profits and then rally to the football and tackle. And if you do that, then this game and the success of it defensively for you comes down to You have to execute and tackle. And when the Dolphins have not had success against the Chargers in the run game and against the Bills in the passing game, it's because they didn't tackle. But I think that formula gives you an opportunity to go into the game and say, okay, if we do this and then we execute this part of playing defense, we're going to give ourselves a chance to win the football game. I'm not going to take low-hanging fruit and say force 2 turnovers. Of course, force 2 turnovers. But I don't have a strategy to create turnovers. Attack the ball in Hurts' hand. Beat the receivers to the ball. There's some tangible thing the Dolphins can do to put themselves in position to get those opportunities. And that's what I found when I went through the Eagles tape. Now, we're going to talk about the offensive side of the ball next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins, so stick with us. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important for you and your family to be prepared. That's why you should consider Jase Medical's The Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use, and all it takes to get a Jase Case is to fill out a simple online form and in some cases jump on a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians. You can get ongoing care from their physicians for any treatment-related questions, doctor-created, doctor recommended. Jase Medical now offers customization with your Jase Case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. Go to jasemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That is jasemedical.com, JASE medical.com, and enter promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for $20 discount off of your order. This NFL season is well in the weeds, and it's still the perfect time for you to snap into action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet with FanDuel. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off this NFL season with FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So offensively for the Dolphins, we alluded to in the last segment that this game may early on have a feel to it that is quite similar to the Buffalo game. And of course, that was 5 possessions to open the game, 5 touchdowns. Buffalo had 3, Miami had 2. And then things kind of snowballed on you and the environment got the better of you. The number one thing that I have down, and it is a question that I fielded a lot of this week, and I don't have any answers for you, but I rest assured, I can guarantee you they've talked about it, and they certainly have something they're going to try. The Dolphins offensively cannot allow a raucous road environment to impact their timing as severely as it did against the Bills in Week 4. So whether that's hand signals, whether that is a tap cadence from the guard, whatever it may be, the Dolphins have to have some kind of non-verbal timing triggers that allow the motions of this offense to be synchronized in a way that capitalizes on what this Dolphins offense does so well. You cannot afford to go into this game and say, well, we're just not going to do the motions. We're just not going to do the shifts. Can't happen. It cannot happen. So what can you do differently from your pre-snap procedure to get it done? I don't have the answer. But I'm sure they have something. And it's Sunday Night Football, prime time. Philadelphia fans have the reputation that they do, not for no reason. The place is going to be bumping. I'm very excited. I'm going to be there myself. The place is going to be bumping. What can you do differently? We'll get that answer pretty quick, and we'll get a feel for it. But they can't roll in there with status quo and expect it to work well because of what status quo looked like the last time you went into an environment like this. And it's good practice because guess what? Y'all are going to have to go to the playoffs if this team's going to go where you want to go, and you're going to have to play in a raucous environment somewhere. Unless you get home field advantage, in which we do, I'm going to be one insufferable podcast to listen to if you're not a Dolphins fan. So consider that to be your warning for everyone. But I look at the Eagles' personnel. Obviously, there's a talent that few teams can match up front between the pass rushers on the outside, the stout bodies on the interior. The Eagles are a tough assignment for any offensive lineman offensive line unit in the game to take on head-to-head. Is Connor Williams going to play? Is he not going to play? I don't know. Limited participant. He practiced for the first time in 2 weeks. Great. But whether or not he plays, I still think there's a couple of things that the Dolphins need to make sure that they are committed to. And the top of that list is they need to stay balanced offensively. Now, if you end up seeing that there's an absolute liability out there and it's blood in the water and you can just take it, then go ahead and just take it, Mike McDaniel. But generally speaking, I would expect this to be a game that you got away from the run game against Buffalo and the tempo of the game accelerated not in your favor. You can't afford to have that happen either. So I would be looking personally for the Dolphins to continue to run the football at a little bit of a higher clip than some of their more potent passing game outputs of the season. I would want to run the ball to the perimeter. I would want to bank on that misdirection. They've really been in their bag the last three weeks or so in that regard, as far as telling lies with where the ball is going and all of the different exchanges of numbers on either side of the center before and after the snap. That's going to be critical, and I think that's why their procedures for shifts and motions is going to be so important, because this Eagles defense, you look at the linebackers, you look at the safeties. There's probably going to be a rookie safety back there in Sidney Brown. You have linebackers in Zach Cunningham, who over the course of the last few years has not had a lot of great success keying and diagnosing against the run. And then you have the speed element that the wide receivers can bring to the table. So long as you're balanced, I think you're going to put yourself in a really good position to test the discipline of the second level. And if you run outside, you're not tempting fate for having to create vertical displacement in the run game. Now, if the Eagles come out in a certain defensive structure or whatever that's going to dictate that you got to run power concepts because you have angles and they are explicitly dedicated to taking away the outside run, then you can counter accordingly. But that would be my plan going in. Like whether it's Nicholas Moreau or Nakobe Dean, and Nakobe Dean's super high football IQ player, but even like his range is not great. His range is good because he anticipates and he diagnoses well. But if it's Nicholas Moreau and it's Zach Cunningham back there on the second level, misdirection these guys to death. Force these safeties to come from depth. Force these corners, like Bradley Roby's banged up. Reed Blankenship's banged up. Darius Slay's banged up. Sidney Brown's apparently coming back. They just signed Josiah Scott to give them another body potentially in the nickel. The back seven for Philly's a problem. So do the things that you've showcased you have the ability to do to mitigate the potential advantage that they have up front. And if you do that, I think you're going to get grass on the back end, but you have to stay balanced. That's how I would look at it. I would also probably limit to the play action passing early. I would want to be very timing oriented early and kind of you play that cat and mouse game and discourage the pass rush a little bit by consistently getting the ball out so quickly. That's probably the game that I would play early. And then if you have success running the football and you do stay on schedule with your passing game and the ball is out in excess or underneath of that 2.5 second threshold with consistency early in the game, as that game wears on, you want to take a few big plays or take a few shot plays or really dial up some play action passes to create some chunk gains. Then you can do it. That would be my strategy offensively. Now, we're going to talk prediction for this game. We're also going to talk about the league, big picture-wise, where the Dolphins stand in this contest versus everyone else. That is next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins, so stick with us. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, because it's you against the numbers. It's not you against thousands of other people, including pros and sharps. No, you just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. If you go up to that 6 stat projections and you correctly hit the more or less, you are talking about winning 25 times your money this football season with PrizePicks. They have a lot of great offers for you, including weekly promotions that promote big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. You can go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for first deposit match of up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for first deposit match of up to $100. Lastly, a lot of good football on this weekend. And whether you're going to a tailgate, getting ready for Eagles Dolphins, or you're going to be at home, or you're going to a college game, or you're going to sit your butt on the couch and just soak in all the glory of 48 hours of all the football you could possibly consume, kindly consider DoorDash. You can order pizza, wings, soda, burgers, or even just buns on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing any of the game. So you can get prepared before game day if you need to. If it's halftime, that's your cue to order. If you have spontaneous cravings, you can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. That is subject to change. Terms do apply. That's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. So download the DoorDash app, enter code LOCKEDON23, subject to change, and terms do apply. So big picture-wise across the league, Jacksonville won against the Saints last night. That pushed Jaguars' record to 4-1 on the 5-2 on the season. They're 4-0 in their last 4 games, including a win over the Bills. The best thing that I can tell you is that the Bills are going to face the Patriots this week. So either New England is going to be 1-6 or the Bills are going to lose a football game. It's a good place to be either way. Now, Miami obviously has their own massive test against Philadelphia on Sunday night. There's going to be a lot of action that is done beforehand. The biggest domino league-wide that will fall besides an interdivision game between the Bills and the Bills and the Patriots. The Jets are on a bye. And Miami's game is there's a game between Detroit and Baltimore at 1:00 on Sunday. That is a game that you as a Dolphins fan should absolutely be dialed into because this AFC North division, you have 3 teams right now with 2 losses. Now, 2 of them have had a bye. But you have Baltimore at 4-2. You have Pittsburgh at 3-2. You have Cleveland at 3-2. And the Browns just beat the 49ers without their starting quarterback. Now, the 49ers incurred a bunch of injuries. It was a West Coast team that came east, so you understand why it contributed the way that it did and how the game ended the way that it did. And San Francisco ultimately had a rookie field goal kicker miss a 41-yard field goal that would have won the game at the end of regulation anyway. But the league landscape, right now, the cutoff is 2 losses. There are 7 teams in this conference with 2 losses or less, and they are all currently sitting in playoff spots. But to further open your eyes on just how competitive this division is, or this conference is, the team that's in 12th place in the conference is 3-3. That's the Bengals right now. The Chargers at 2-3 are 13th. So the 13th place team has 3 losses. The 7th place team has 2 losses. Miami is one of 2 teams in the conference with 1 loss, the other one being the Chiefs. The Chiefs host the Chargers. That's a big game for the fact that if the Chargers could win, obviously that, from a big picture perspective, keeps Miami in position to have their own advantages in a race for a hypothetical 1 seed, right? And that's obviously way down the road. It's a couple months from now. But Miami plays the Chiefs and they play the Bills, which are the 2 teams that you would most assume are going to be barking up their tree at the end of the year. Jacksonville having 2 losses at 5-2 is a team that is probably going to be a 12-13 win team when it's all said and done. So if you were rooting for ultimate Dolphins chaos, then the Saints winning that game and the AFC team losing would have been a preferable outcome. It is what it is. But this Dolphins game itself, that's why we're here, right? Dolphins at 5-1, playing the Eagles, who are also 5-1. Full transparency. When I picked the game, when the schedule first came out, and when I picked the game at the start of the regular season, I picked the Eagles to win this football game. And one of the things Some Dolphins fans took exception with that was saying, Kyle, you picked the Dolphins to go 11-6, and they won every game that they quote unquote should have, and lost all of the games that were competitive against good teams. So that tells us you don't think the Dolphins are a good team. I do think the Dolphins are a good team. I look at this opportunity as the leave no doubt opportunity to declare that to the world. They, of course, had that opportunity in week 4 against a divisional opponent. It didn't go well. But I think one point that Joe Marino, my co-host on Locked On NFL Scouting, made that I thought was very interesting was the teams that Miami has put up the least amount of points on this season, between what they did against New England and what they did against Buffalo, 24 and 20 points respectively, are the teams that know the Dolphins because they have to play them twice a year. The Eagles are a very unfamiliar opponent. And I do think this offensive scheme for Miami is kind of unique. It's not easily replicated. Now, the Eagles had success staving off the 49ers, but the 49ers, of course, were on their third and fourth string quarterbacks throughout the course of that game in the playoffs last year. I think I'm going to pick Miami to win this game in the here and now because, look, I host Locked On Dolphins. Of course, I'm going to pick them to win the game if I think it's close, and I do think it's close. If you told me that Miami won 31-27, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me that the game didn't go Miami's way early and they lost 31-21, I also would not be surprised. But I think 31-27 Miami is going to be my formal prediction for the game. I look at Philadelphia. I acknowledge how talented they are. They're going to move the ball. I need you to get comfortable with the fact that the Eagles are probably going to have 425 plus yards of offense. They're going to get in the end zone a few times. A.J. Brown is going to have a few back-breaking third down conversions. Jalen Hurts is going to have a few third and short and fourth and short conversions with his legs. That's the team. It's a 12-round fight. But pace yourself for a 12-round fight. Learn the lessons that you had suffered hard knocks from in week 4, and I think you'll be in a position to win this football game at the end. Because I do think Philadelphia's weaknesses are something that you can really amplify, accentuate, and take advantage of. Dolphins 31-27 is my final game prediction for Sunday Night Football. Dolphins at Eagles. We'll see how it goes. I will be here to talk to you all after the game. Looking forward to getting everybody caught up. Here's to a healthy weekend for the Dolphins. Obviously, some big names getting ready to start coming back from Miami, so we're all very excited about that. But the group they got is kind of the group they got to go to war with on this Sunday against Philadelphia. And let's see what the Dolphins have cooked up. But that's my 2 cents, what I would do, what I would look for going into this game. Hope you guys enjoyed. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Fins up. I'll be back to talk to y'all again in the post game after Dolphins-Eagles on Sunday night.